Okay, we are live. So, welcome to the return of Nansen Unsupervised. I've got Kaleo and CMS Intern and Dan from CMS, which is very exciting. We're going to look at various topics, including their views on the market. I think they're both very bullish, apparently, at the moment, which is an exciting thing. And then, we'll look at their approach to trading, investing, how they ended up where they are, and I'm sure various other stuff too that we were just chatting about. So before we start, if you want to level up your crypto and NFT analysis, check out the link in our description to see the Nansen plans, and you can sign up today. And also make sure that you subscribe, turn notifications on. We do office hours every Wednesday. We do unsupervised now every Friday again. So everything very exciting, and I think that is it. So let's start with Dan from CMS. How did you end up in your position? I'm interested as well if you had any prior jobs before this.
So I had two jobs. One wasn't real. I worked for the government for 3 months. Right. So I graduated in the back of the financial crisis. And there really wasn't good opportunities or any opportunities. So part of Obama's push was this big jobs initiative. And he was just hiring truckloads of people to work for the government. So I went to work for the BLS for 3 months. And then a buddy of mine, Julian, who actually is one of the partners here, was like, hey, I'm working at this hedge fund. They need help on the programming side. Would you want to come interview? Yada, yada. So I ended up taking that role, and I learned sort of to trade and a lot of stuff that I knew about markets there for the first couple of years. And then crypto at that time was just Bitcoin. It started to get a little popular. This was late 2012. And I started to do a bunch of automated market making type activity on the exchanges, real rudimentary stuff. All the dollar value stuff was really small. And then in 2013, it runs up, right? You get that first big pull. And then a lot of people started to come in. It started to become much more of a real thing. People started raising money. The corporate started to become a little more professional, some larger name sort of investors moved in. And then from there, I kind of just jumped all in. So I ended up leaving the fund, worked at Kraken and then Circle, and then got to CMS after. So I've been doing this kind of full time since 2013. So for a fair bit now. But I did have a markets background before. So that was sort of how my first approach to all this thing.
Wow, so you worked at Circle and Kraken before? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I worked at Circle for 5 years. So I was there through the meat of the sort of 2017 bull run. That was wild. That was it's hard. It's hard because if you weren't around back then, you kind of sort of take for granted. Everything kind of works now, right? The exchanges generally function. Everything was much more broken. The exchanges would be either down or there'd be no pipes, the connectivity. I mean, connectivity in the sense of could you send money there? Was stable coins weren't ubiquitous. Tether was just getting going. And was not used by anybody except Bitfinex and Polo at the time. So the plumbing and the pipes mattered a lot more, and a lot more of this stuff traded bilaterally. So traded on the OTC market. So we had a significant amount of the overall trading market, of the market as a whole, just flowing through our desk at the time. So it was a much bigger thing than it is sort of now. That was by far still the wildest period I traded through. 2021 was fun, but we didn't touch, didn't hold a candle to what happened in 2017.
Okay, let's ask Kaleo. Kaleo, how did you end up as Kaleo in this position? Were you here 2012 like Dan?
No, I was not. I think I heard about Bitcoin actually for the first time from an Uber driver back in 2014. And looking back on it, I remember that conversation clearly. But the first time it really sunk in was 2017. So early 2017, it was a lunch and learn at my company that, some dude talked about Bitcoin and Ethereum. He worked with Consensus and, just walked out of that where, kind of looked at the price, bought a little bit after, I think Bitcoin was 900, Ethereum was $15. And, from there, the prices started to go up, and the more they went up, the more I'm okay, I've really got to look into this. So just dug deep into it from the technical side. And from there, man, I mean, I think that I had a buddy that told me about this thing called crypto Twitter. And that was in May, right during the consensus pump and all the shit coins. So that's when I really first learned about shit coins, was May of 15, thinking that Digibyte was going to change the world. And, that I could go down the list. Gollum was going to be where everybody stored everything. And I just all the old 2017 dynos I can list. I fell for every single one of them. Eventually, I saw all these people shit posting and, sharing their thoughts. And I was too embarrassed to share it on my own personal account. So I created the Kaleo account and just kind of started from that in, fall of 17.
When so before you got into crypto, did you have like trading experience, or like when did you get to a point where you actually
does RuneScape count from back in the day?
Kind of.
that's probably about as close
counts.
as it gets. Like sitting at the Grand Exchange, just typing, spamming for hours. That and then like the degen of experience of going to the duel arena. That was all when I was like middle school back in the day. And outside of that, man, no. I mean, I oil and gas engineer, drilling completions, so drilling wells, fracking, all the fun stuff they love up in the Northeast.
Okay, let me ask actually. So I'll start with you, Kevin, as well. How long do you think for all three of you does it take to like really get into crypto and actually understand what's going on? Like, do you feel like it takes at least 2 years to really understand what's happening?
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's kind of a spectrum, right? Like you kind of everyone falls down a similar path where you first hear about it and then you invest a little bit and then it either goes way up or way down. You're like, I have to learn what this is. And then like you start to learn the fundamentals. And then just like each year that comes, you learn something else, something different that's going on, right? So like I felt like I had a pretty good grasp and then joined CMS and saw how Dan was talking about stuff. And I was like, it shows, right? When you talk to people that have been in it for so long, like they just know different stuff that's going on. Yeah, I mean, I think like to cut your teeth and really have like good strategy around it, I'd say like 2 years is fair. But then like each additional year, right? Like you understand the people who have less experience and less know-how in the space.
Yeah. What about you, Dan? In 2012, did you? How long did it take to really understand what was happening?
So it was quicker because there wasn't like a lot going on. Like that period in particular, like it was kind of just Bitcoin. There were altcoins, but like they were just clones of Bitcoin. There wasn't like nobody was building anything novel. It's like it's a lot harder now to get up. Like I would say like I don't know what's going on, right? Like the amount of information that's like coming at you and the amount of like the ecosystem is expanded like horizontally. Like there's more things that matter at more times as opposed to like you could just like go on the like. I mean, it was Bitcoin talk in the beginning, but then it became like Reddit was like where the information was. And you could just like look at the top 10 things on like /r Bitcoin. And like you kind of knew everything that was going on like at that moment. Like you could be really in the weeds on the developer side, but in general, there's so little information that you could actually just consume it all in like a relatively like small amount of period and like get up to speed. So that was like the difference back then. So back then it was really quick. Like, I don't know, you could be up to speed in like 3 months. Obviously you could become specialized in any one of those things, but you could have like a pretty good grasp of what was going on in the ecosystem. Now, like, I just don't think you can. Like, I don't think it's like, you'll never like really, like there's whole, and I would say this, like, if you think you do have an idea of what's going on, like go into like some other corner of crypto that like maybe you don't hang out in and like realize how little you know of what's like going on. Like it's funny because like you see this sometimes with like hacks, right? Where like some random fucking lending protocol in Asia gets popped and it'll be like $100 million of assets. And you'll be like, I've never heard of this thing. Like you put $100 million and you'll be like, how, like, you got to realize there's like entire ecosystems that exist in Japan and like Korea and Asia that you have no insight into. So like, that's the other like big thing is it also got more popular in other regions. So like Bitcoin was not really a thing in Asia until like BTC China and OKX like started doing like real volume, and that wasn't until like 2013. So like that was also like the big thing is like it became a bigger market in more places, which like really made it a lot harder to like keep track of what's going on. So I don't know. That's like the big shift in like how stuff, and like alts just have value now, and like arguably like some of them are giving like Bitcoin a run for its money. That didn't change until really, I don't know, I want to say like probably the last like 3 years. Like they existed in 2017, but it was the beginning of what you saw come the last wave.
Yeah. Okay, Kaleo, what about you?
Yeah, I like, honestly, I think it's multifaceted, right? You can pick up on a lot of stuff pretty quickly if you spend a lot of time on it. If you stay pretty surface level, it's going to take you a while, but like what Dan said, even if you just dive in and you are spending every single waking minute of every single day trying to focus on the fundamentals and, each different ecosystem, there are just so many that exist these days that, like, I don't see how it's possible to, become any type of, expert in any field over, it's going to take a decent amount of time these days, right? Like, it just, like what Dan said, anytime that I get on Twitter, I feel like I see something new about some new ecosystem or new pocket of either community online or, token that, was rugged that I've never heard of that exists. And back in 2017, like, that just didn't happen, right? I feel like the news was a little bit more concentrated. You knew just about everything that was going on. I mean, coin market cap, if you got on there, I remember, when it started getting up to like 1,500 coins, something crazy like that. I remember when it broke above 1,000, and I would go through that list every single day back then and keep track of everything that I could, trying to look for these little pockets that, okay, maybe this might have some type of potential down the road. And now, it's almost impossible to do that, manually. You've got to have some other type of tool to be able to help dig into that for you. Just the complexities have continued to increase as the fields continue to mature. So, it's one of those things that takes a little bit of time. I think, something simple for everybody. Focus on just, the core understanding of the blue chip. Understand what Bitcoin is, understand what ETH is, and work your way down from there when you're trying to dive into any other ecosystem.
When did crypto Twitter actually like become a big thing? We were kind of talking about it before the call. So was it like really in place from like 2017? So back when you were like early on, Dan, there wasn't crypto Twitter, as you mentioned. It was like on Reddit. So when did this actually become a thing?
So before Reddit, it was Bitcoin Talk, which I feel like nobody knows about now, but that was everything. No. And then it's funny, this guy, I don't know if you say his name, it's like Themos, raised something like 20,000 Bitcoin to like upgrade the forum. This was back when like Bitcoin like wasn't worth anything, and then like he just didn't do anything. Then like it's upgrading a forum, right? Like I don't know like what the lift is, but like he just didn't do it, and he just like has the Bitcoin still. It's like one of the greatest like heists of all time. But it's just like a piece of trivia and random history there. So then it kind of went to Reddit because the spam got out of control, and like forums I think also just like don't work over a certain size. I think like if they hit like a certain like threshold of like people, and then they just become like unwieldy and unusable. Or at least that was my experience with that one. And then it was like Reddit for years. And then I don't know, I want to say like 2016, 2017. I remember lobbying Circle to give me a Twitter account for Circle, and they like wouldn't do it. And I fought them like every quarter. I'd be like, we should do this. This would be fun. And they were just like,
what was their reason? What was their reason for not wanting?
They just had like super buttoned up PR, and they like just didn't like want to like get in the weeds with the commoners. It was like very much like just like no, like we have like this like super regulated like corporate voice that like we want to keep control of, and you clearly won't follow. So that like kind of stifled that. But I remember like wanting to like be on there then. So like I don't know, probably started I want to say like 2016. Does that like sort of sound right? Kaleo would know better.
Yeah, so, also like in this same thing, sorry, Kaleo, like I want to ask all of you, how important do you think it is to like have a social profile and like have a presence on crypto Twitter and just Twitter in general, I guess?
Okay, so I'll start off, first off with the origin of crypto Twitter. Whenever I started 2017, April of it, it was already going strong, right? Like, I look back at my old personal account and I look through the people that I follow. A lot of those people are still around. Granted, like there are a lot of people that have left from that cycle as well. But, the key names, like Kobe was one of my first follows from back in the day, right? Like he's always been around, and they had that cycle with like him, Maine, and you can go down a list of other people that were around back to 2013. I feel like that's really where it got kicked off, but I think it really gained traction in 2017. But I think having a social profile, can be incredibly beneficial because it does open up doors to be able to, make connections with people that you never would have had that opportunity for otherwise, right? From a pure, if you're a trader, I don't really think, honestly, that it does too much inherently. You can learn obviously from other people, make connections from people that have done different strategies, this and that. Like, from the pure advantage of figuring out a system, I don't necessarily think that it's an incredible advantage there, outside of, potentially being able to make connections, to be able to facilitate any type of deal flow, to be able to facilitate, again, just I think being able to keep track of what's happening in the world of crypto, having a social media account and being present, being part of that, does tangibly make a difference, down the road.
Yeah, Kevin, we've had this conversation before of like how the intern account, CMS intern account emerged. But it's interesting now because we've got Dan here. But like Dan and both of you, I guess, what was your take? So when CMS intern was doing so well with the account, did you expect it, Dan? And then what's the benefit of having like this social presence that you both have? Because you're both very funny as well. Both have like memes going on and everything.
So for the background of this, like Kevin didn't tell me he was going to do this. He just like started doing it. And then like the account DM'd me and was like, hey, is it okay if I post this? And I was like, who are you? And then he came clean on it. And I was like, oh, you like actually are the intern. Okay. So that was like, I didn't like, it wasn't like we talked this, it wasn't planned. He like just like kind of went with it and ran with it, which was awesome. I mean, I was like, look, as long as you don't say anything that's going to like get us canceled or like cause like a headache, like I'm all for it. Like go wild. My like take on it in general is like by far and large, the majority of it is like just nonsense fun and like doesn't really like give a lot of, but it keeps you engaged, which is like super important, right? Like it keeps you like it keeps you on the knife's edge of like where information is, even if like the majority of what you're consuming is like useless. But it's fun, like so it is harmless for like the most part. So I think that's like why it's like super important, is it like keeps you like involved in like where and what matters in the market, at least in this segment of it. And this is like where I want to say it's like super important is you got to realize like crypto Twitter is not all of the market. It's like a subset of it. And like, because this is like a market that has gotten much more global, like you have to realize that a lot of the like the stuff that's happening like isn't there, right? Like there's like people in China are not using Twitter, like, and they're definitely not consuming it the way like you are. So like it's very important to realize that like I think crypto Twitter in particular like gets hyper focused on things and thinks they're more important than they are, just because it's like this echo chamber that keeps, you're like, oh, everyone's talking about this. Well, like, it's like, no, it's like everyone on crypto Twitter is talking about this, but like that's not the market. So like keep that like sort of like in like the back of your mind with all this stuff. But it is very good to know like it's also like it's a good way to gauge sentiment, like, which is, I'm not saying it's like always like an inverse thing, but like you can get a feel for like sort of like how like despair and sort of euphoria are in the market at any given time.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's helped you? Like I've always thought, or maybe it's wrong, but having like this big social presence, especially for like investment firms, does it just like keep your company at the like tip of people's tongue or whatever the phrase is? So like when they think of like they're trying to raise or whatever, they can like quickly think of CMS and other like VCs or whatever that are well known. Whereas like there might be people that don't have this social presence and they're not the first people that they ask. So you get the first opportunities. Have you felt that, or is that hard to tell?
It's hard to tell. I'd say it's net incremental. Like I would say it's better than not having one. Like, I mean, like, look, like here's a good example. Like, I don't know how true this is, but there's all these reports of like venture guys like paying people to like write tweet threads and stuff like that. Like, they wouldn't be doing that if it was worthless, right? So like they obviously perceive that there's like inherent value in like sort of having that presence. So I think it's like it's net incremental. I would say like that's why by far and large though, like it is it is bulk, just like not waste of time is the wrong word. It's just like just having fun. Like I would say like it's not like I'm on there like constantly doing diligence. I really fade that.
Mm-hmm. So like Kevin, for you, right? It's not really part of your job either. You're on the venture side. So the Twitter is just for fun, is it? Like whenever you have time?
Yeah, it's definitely not in the job description by any means. I mean, I think it's fun. I think like exactly how Dan described it, right? Like it can be good. There can be good information, sentiment gauging. there's also just been like this kind of culture built around it, right? That just kind of keeps expanding. And like it's kind of become more important as well, right? It's like an analogy would be like if there's like a big skate park, right? And the guys who've been around for a long time and everyone knows them, like there's kind of a social circle, and it's hard to like come in as a new guy. And everyone who's been around there kind of talks and has like their own sense of humor and stuff. So yeah, I mean, by and large, definitely fun. There's definitely like positive things that come out of it from a business perspective, but like by no means is that kind of the goal, right? It's just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, when you've been grinding down for 11 months, right, like having some type of comedic relief just like helps morale and sentiment. And yeah. I
think that's true. Yeah. Okay. So next thing I want to talk about, because I think it's interesting, we have like two different types of investors, I guess. I want to get your like strategies. So if we start with Kaleo, what is like your investment strategy? I'm really interested in yours because obviously you do a lot of like technical analysis. But are you looking into like tokenomics, and you're looking into fundamentals and owners and all of this? Or are you like strictly just looking at charts for trading?
Oh, bro, you have to. I think you have to have a base understanding of the tokenomics going into anything, right? Like, okay, here's an example of look at like oxygen with like understanding going into it with, but and I'll talk about like kind of during the middle of just an incredible bull run, right? Where everything is pumping left and right and the momentum is just, you can feel it. I'd say at that point, if you're just looking to swing in and out of trades and ride the momentum and, just scalp here and there, the tokenomics may not be quite as important. But again, if you're looking for a longer term investment strategy in anything, I mean, yeah, you have to understand the tokenomics. And, I mean, seriously, like with any other, especially right now with the bear market, whenever things are moving slower too. And, even so in the bull market at any time, you've got to be able to dive into that. But as far as, like my strategy in the heart of the bull market was basically look for technical setups that, were on the verge of breaking out. And, whenever there were other projects and charts that had similar setups and had already broken out, right? Like people are looking for that next move. So I wanted to be a leader into those moves. So I would just basically ape a massive position and help, force my hand toward that breakout. And then, like a lot of the times the momentum for that would just end up following out through it. And, like playing the trending market in that way was, you could say it was a little bit reckless, but again, I think that like that was part of the edge leading into it. So obviously, like that type of strategy won't work in the midst of a bear market with this. And it does become a lot more of a trader's market playing those ranges. And, like I think the important thing with anything is being able to find a strategy that works for you. So like right now, I've been incredibly patient sitting on the sidelines for, months and months and months for a huge chunk of this year. And I'm only just now starting to dive back into the shitcoin trades because I think that we're going to get a couple months of relief rallies here, right? So like, I think that's a big part of it too, is understanding you've got to be able to know, when your strategy that you own can work well and when it won't, and be able to be patient, and have that discernment and not try to do something that, you're not necessarily going to be able to perform well with, in the meantime.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a big like winning trade or like token or something last year? Like for me, I remember it must be last year. I have like such weird understanding of time, but for me, I always attach like your name with the Tesla trade. Was Tesla like your big
Tesla was one of the big ones, right? The Tesla one was basically a bleed strategy where I was just buying like my whole strategy with that was I wanted to have like 200 out of the money contracts at all time, like, it was either 2 to 3 weeks, something around there out. So basically the way that Tesla moved, again, it was, an impulse type play, right? And obviously like Tesla's a perfect example. I'm not going to have any, any type of leverage whatsoever to be able to move Tesla by myself. But, Tesla, you look at the flag and you look at, the way that it moved, basically it would move up 40 to 50% in about a 1 to 2 week time frame every time that it ended up breaking out. So my whole strategy was, okay, just have these short-term expiry options, let them go to zero, just keep refilling. And then eventually, whenever it does break out, like whatever I have will just, explode. And after about like 2.5 months of just, I think I bled like 250K to zero before finally like the positions ended up blowing up for like a couple $1 million in a couple weeks. And it was one of those things though, where a lot of people were saying, okay, that's insane during the process, but it's understanding kind of the, like it was risk management in a different sense. I could have bought that same amount, just further dated expiry, and like it would still been, still seeing a different type of bleed during the process. So, that was one, like I can look back during the shitcoin season. I feel like the first one that really kicked me off last year was like Eng. So I had like this Eng fractal that would just, somehow, man, like it just played out perfectly over the course of like a month. And that kind of just started, from there, a series of other wins back then, early spring.
Yeah. I want to ask you, I'll get to it though, of like other things that you trade. So like if you still trade stocks, I know you're into NFTs now as well. But Dan, you're dealing with your dog. But I want to ask like the strategy of CMS. So if you could explain actually like what CMS is, maybe people don't know. And then, what the company strategy is.
Yeah, so there's two things. We do a lot of liquid active trading. That has expanded into like we do a bunch of like stuff on DeFi. We do a bunch of like sort of like traditional ARB type stuff for us, like DeFi things, and then like obviously CeFi. Farm, which was obviously huge in 2021, that's like slowed down. So we have like a guy dedicated who just like runs sort of that stuff. We do like a lot of like sort of shorter time frame trading, call it anywhere from days to month sort of time frame. And then we have a venture book that Kevin is like heavily involved in. But that being said, like we kind of pool all the risks together. Like we think about it very much like in the same bucket. Things that aren't liquid, we like don't. We just like ignore them for the most part. Like we're not like sort of like taking that into risk considerations. But yeah, like it's that big soup of like risk that we're managing on any given day, and then sort of like moving pieces of it long and short, depending on like what we're looking to like expose or like what direction, or like if we think some like for some reason there'll be outperformance or underperformance of something under like some time frame. And we'll do that with like derivatives, like a lot of the times, like we traded like a lot of perps or like even fixed date futures. I mean, we used to do a lot more like basis trading and like interest rate type stuff. We might get more back into that. Like the bilateral like lending market is just like pretty banged up right now. So like we're doing less sort of that type strategy. And that's like just like a function of 3AC, just basically torching all these lenders. So we'll see like how that stuff sort of evolves. It also just hasn't been great. Like it's a great bull market like kicker to like sort of add. And it gives you like this weird, like not weird, but like this is a trade we used to run a ton of, where like you just like your long spot, you're short fixed date futures, right? So you short the quarterlies against like spot, which is great because if the market takes like a digger, like that will flatten very quickly. So it has like, it trades with like this embedded sort of like put in it, which is great. So like that like is like a big thing we would use to sort of like mitigate risk exposure while like still keeping stuff on. So anyway, we like we're really looking anywhere. Like we will trade sort of anything that's like liquid and like isn't a security or it's like defensible for us to like get into. The one thing we probably just haven't gotten involved in is like NFTs, mostly because it's like not a scalable thing for us. I know a lot of the individual people here trade a ton of it. Like I know Kevin probably, I don't know how many NFTs you own, but like people here definitely like were very involved in that, like on a personal level, but we've never done anything. We own a couple random ones for like CMS itself, but like that's like the one thing I say we haven't gotten super involved in. So I don't know, that's sort of the day to day. It's a pretty nebulous answer, but
wait, Dave, you not own a penguin?
I am penguin-less, dude.
You're pingless, and you're saying you're talking about buying a fucking dinosaur pre-show, and you're saying you don't even own one ping in the presence.
Well,
of
Kevin's got him.
Come on, man! No, that is
I'll
bullshit.
buy it from Kevin when it roofs.
I want to see a ping purchased by the end of the next week, and otherwise there's no
like a Nansen docs address.
No, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I'm done. I had to quickly, sorry for the interruption.
It's fair.
Yeah,
It's a legitimate
that is
gripe.
outrageous. Yeah. I want to talk about actually your like dinosaurs and stuff. I forgot about that until Kaleo just mentioned it. But first, Kevin, have you tried to push for NFT purchases at CMS?
Not as a firm, right? Like I think it was and it still is like pretty important to be involved with it on a personal level, like trading around, kind of seeing how communities work, what community growth looks like. Because like from the venture perspective, right, a ton of new stuff and innovation has been built in the DeFi space, and like it seems to be like potentially the stickiest thing, at least over the last year. Like there's still a ton of volume moving around on this stuff, and like SudoSwap came out and built the NFT AMM, so like being plugged in and like having a pulse on everything going around in there is like, I think it's super important. Like we definitely have looked at a decent amount of that stuff from a venture perspective. But it's like, what, like if people are going to trade it, right, and they love it, like I don't know, I've been a part of communities that like I actually feel for, right, like the I am my penguin is me guy. Like I think that was parody, but it's like real. Like
That was
people
real.
love this. Yeah, they love the communities, and I think they're going to stick around, right? So like personally, I play around with them. From a venture perspective, like always looking for anything cool and innovative in that space. But yeah, do own a penguin. Yeah, I mean, from the fun perspective though, like Dan said, right, like it's hard to they're so illiquid, right? So like if you actually wanted to take a big position, like you're gonna move the floor a ton when you go in to buy. And then if you start dumping, right, like you're immediately canceled and you wreck everyone else's prices. So it's kind of tough to trade in any size, but like on an individual level, I think it's got to be like the most fun part of crypto for the last year or so.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
bought
I agree.
we bought an Urban Galaxy, which I don't know if that counts as an NFT. That was like the only NFT purchase we made that was like real in the bull market.
Okay. Are you feeling guilty now, Dan? You have to say that you own at least something.
Yes, I do. Kaleo's bullied me. Like,
hey, that and like you DM me your ETH address, I'll send you a wonky stunk. Also, the future.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'll send you a free gift of a wonky stunk to start off the collection.
Never turn down a free NFT.
Wow. Okay, let's cover it while Kaleo mentioned it. Sorry. So we want to quickly cover Dan's attempted dinosaur purchase, and maybe you can show us your tusk. What is it? Mammoth tusk instead. So yeah, give us the story, Dan.
Oh, there it is. Just sitting real super useful in the middle of the room. Yeah, so in the peak of the bull market, we like got together and tried to like basically buy a dinosaur. I'm not sure it was the biggest, it was the most complete triceratops that had like ever been discovered.
This was last year, right?
This was like almost to a year to the date. Like this, you could like almost like pick the top of like the entire market on like the date we bought this thing. So like obviously just peak euphoria. And we sent a guy over to Europe because it was in France to like bid this thing. And the auction house was just like massively off on where they thought this thing would trade. Like it went for a couple multiples of where they thought it was gonna, and like just ran away from us. So like we had like a price where we're just not, like this is not, this is a ridiculous purchase, but like we have a limit. And because we got just like blown out of it, we had to send a deposit because they like want to make sure like you're a real bidder. So like you have to do a bunch of KYC and like prove you have the funds and send a deposit. And the deposit was in euros, and I was like, I don't even want to figure out how to get this like shitcoin back. So like, what can I do with it? And I just told Jack, who was the guy who had gone over to bid it for us, I was like, just burn the deposit, because they were auctioning a bunch of stuff that day. I was like, just spend it. I was like, buy stuff until you like get through it, and like then we'll just like figure it out. So we got the tusk, we got this like bullhorn, which is pretty cool, and then this giant dinosaur fish that like is still in the box. So like that we haven't done anything with. So we got some like parting gifts for the whole thing, but I learned a lot about the fossil world, and like so it was and how museums operate. So that was fun. But yeah, like just got completely smoked on it. So I think it was like a Disney exec from Texas that bought it, because it was going back to America. But yeah, I don't actually know where it is now.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you know what they did with it? Because you didn't have an idea where to put it, right? So even if you did buy it, you weren't sure what was going to happen.
I think, yeah, I would like to think that we would have put it to a museum, or I don't know. Like there was talk of tokenizing it. There was talk of like making a DAO. I don't know which route would have ended up happening. It took a while. So we bought it in November. I don't think we got it and the stuff we bought until February or March of the next year. So like, and it like got held up. There's also a ton of hidden fees. I did not realize, like whatever you buy it for, there's like 25% more that you have to pay in like customs and the auction house fees and like the shipping. It like really added up quickly.
Okay, interesting. Do you think you're going to try and get some more stuff in the future then? Maybe when the bull market's back?
And don't forget the Constitution DAO.
Dude, talk about a terrible trade. Like we put a real amount of money into that thing, and like the backstory there is a good buddy of mine was like working on it behind the scenes. A guy had worked with that circle, so like he was the one, because like he was like, you have to do this, and I was like, this looks like a scam. I was like, I'm not gonna just fire a bunch of money into the void. And he's like, no, like it's real. Like I'm telling you, yada yada. And he like talked me through it. And I like got to meet a lot of the people that were like doing it, so we felt better. And we put a real amount in, and then when we lost, I was like, like I guess I'll just redeem it, which was just apparently the dumbest decision I've made to date, because it just fucking flew. I think I think if we had held it, like done nothing, right? It was like a $25 million position that we just effectively did not make, because we like redeemed instead of like doing nothing. Like you would, not that you would ever think that, but it was just like a wild like bull market sort of like behavior. So yeah. that's like probably my worst trade to date.
Wow. Kaleo, did you put money into that? I remember that and thinking it was a scam, but maybe that's because I'm English or something. I don't know.
I mean, I just didn't see the point, honestly. Like, I'm not really a big fan of anything. And like, I apologize to DSFI if you somehow listen to this. I'm just not a big fan of fractionalizing a lot of different shit like that right now, especially if there's no clear action plan of like, what are you going to do with it other than say, yeah, I guess like a part owner of what, like, it just, I don't know, never really attracted me. Again, I just learned today that I am falling behind if I do not own a dinosaur at one point in my life. So like, that is a new aspiration. The Constitution, not quite there for me, but hey, like I'm open to whatever the next big thing is whenever it does happen.
Yeah, I just wanted to do it. Like I really wanted to buy it. Like I was like I was like beyond the fractionalization and the token and all that stuff. Like I really wanted it to work. And if you guys remember, I don't know how, like, if you like watched it, like they thought that like, first of all, a clusterfuck of like a process, like nobody knew who was bidding for who while we were watching this auction. And there was that like very attractive woman that everybody thought like worked for us in the DAO, but like was actually like the other person bidding. Do you remember this? Like they thought they won for like 45 minutes until like it came out like, no, like we got smoked. Like that wasn't our person bidding. So like nobody even knew what was going on while they were like watching this whole thing unfold.
Yeah, I remember that was crazy. Kaleo, you mentioned earlier though, right? As someone I guess everyone thinks has a ton of money or whatever, you don't actually make many extravagant purchases.
No, man, I don't make extravagant purchases. I don't. And yeah, like maybe one day, but that's just not, I don't know. It's just never been my style. I even, like I said, I bought a Q8, which is nothing too crazy, but I still even felt, a little bit like, it still felt just a little bit more than what I needed. Like my previous car that I drove, literally the day before I bought the Q8, the transmission went out. And like I had struggled for about 2 years of, driving around and, the Texas heat with no AC, no anything, because like it would just go in and out occasionally. And I would just go with the windows down. Like that's how, minimalist I am when it comes to a lot of shit. Like I don't know, man. I know, like that was terrible.
Get a car with AC for.
I mean, that was probably too much information, but like it was the truth. I just like, I get what I need, and anything else, I don't know. It just is what it is.
Does that money, the money that you would spend on like getting a car with AC, does that go into like NFTs now instead? Do you have like any really high value
Yeah,
NFTs?
you
It's
can't
more
be
like,
like, you gotta buy a pudgy penguin and be like, yeah, my car doesn't have heat. Like,
hey, I said I've had it now. I've had it now for a solid year and a half. Like we're solid. Everything's good. No, man. I mean, not really. Like I said, I just buy what I need, put it to the side. It is what it is. Like, so as far as NFTs, the high value, like I just have some pudgies, man. I've got a small array of pudgies. I think I've got like 8 of them, 8 like 50 lils or something, nothing too insane. I don't know, man. I'm kind of just still in the camp of a lot of PTSD from the last bear market, and I don't want anything insane. Like, I just want to be ready for whenever the next bull market starts, man. Like that's my whole thing is, just focus on not doing anything too crazy right now and have as much dry powder as I can ready whenever that next real cycle gets going here in the next couple of years.
Kaleo, next, like when Doge is $1, I'm just gonna slide into your DMs and I'll send you the contact of Sotheby's for the dinosaur. Let me know what you get.
We can make it happen.
Yeah, I'll catch you when you're weakest.
That part's going to be clipped now, Dan. Doge to $1. That's what everyone's going to say.
That's
Kaleo's thing. That's not my thing.
No, I just tweeted out
it.
Cripstoon's like $3 question mark. I don't know why you didn't try to get him in here too. The other Boston kid in the crew.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's local. I haven't met him. I think Kevin has.
Yeah, he's one of my good friends in real life now. Yeah, connected through crypto Twitter and then hang out like relatively often. So,
Kelly, I want to ask you: are you collecting NFTs, or are you doing this as a trade, as an investment, or do you think you just love penguins?
Okay, the penguin thesis, for instance, it's like, dude, whenever those hit 20 ETH, like I'll probably end up dumping some. It is what it is. But like, I think that they will eventually, and I'm not going to dump everything whenever that hits that price because I really, it's kind of just an interesting experiment with, like a community that I think is a solid community that has potential going into the next bull run. I think some of these are definitely going to die out, right? Like the majority of them, but I think that there will be a decent amount of blue chips that do end up kind of entering that price discovery, catching a bid. Penguins are just one when you look at it, both from like, the FA perspective, like where I see so much on the timeline, I see them incredibly active. Like they've got a solid community. And then you look at, from the TA perspective as well, where, a lot of people give shit about like TA with NFTs, but I definitely think it can work. And you look at just like this range that they've consolidated in throughout the course of the past, year and couple months, I guess, since they minted out, and it just, like they are just sitting there bumping up against that 3 ETH, 4 ETH resistance. And I think they're going to, whenever that finally happens, I think they're going to rocket past it. Whenever they're above 4 ETH, like I don't think it'll take too long before they hit double digits. And, so it's kind of just an experiment of, okay, how does the TA side of things look? And like from the patient's perspective, it's nice, you just sit on your ass and it's like, okay, like if it happens, great. If not, it is what it is. But like, I'll just wait it out and see.
Were you into NFTs last summer when it was like completely wild?
Dude, here's the deal. I was, but I just never really pulled the trigger because I was so focused still on, very just narrow-minded about, okay, I wanted to long Luna and I wanted to like long BTC. And that was basically it. Luna, BTC, ETH, those were like my focuses. And the Luna thing definitely paid off. But the issue was as Luna started to ramp up and do what it did, the NFT cycle really started to happen that August as well, right? So like I was kind of on the sidelines for that, but still definitely interested. Like NFTs are one of those things where I think this next cycle, they will be the main figure right? Like whatever we saw with the DeFi L1 explosion this time around, like, you know, you were going to see that type of growth in the NFT space this next time around. Like, you know, the 2021, you know, through where we are right now, like that's just a test pump. Barely done any volume. The market cap is still really shallow. And when you look at like the overall virality aspect of it, with how much easier it is for the average, you know, pleb to be able to jump on and, you know, understand what an NFT is and ape into it. Like, I mean, look at what happened with Reddit recently. Like NFTs are going to be the next wave of speculative massive returns.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I will touch on what Kaleo said there with like once they kind of break above like the 5 to 7 ETH like barrier and mental resistance.
Mhm.
I was talking to a founder who runs an NFT company yesterday, and he had this theory that was like pretty much once an NFT gets to like 7 or 8 ETH, all of a sudden they're on the radar of like large buyers, like whether it be funds or whales, where you can put size into it. So his theory is that like there's a gap, but from like 6 or 7 ETH to like 15, that pretty much immediately happens and they get momentum, almost like the S&P, right? Like once a company's big enough and gets in the S&P, then you get like the daily index purchases of it because like it became big enough and now people can buy it. That absolutely not financial advice, but I thought it was like a very interesting take on like how NFTs gain momentum, and then like once you break that 10 ETH barrier, like what happens from there.
Yeah, Dan, are you gonna send us past 7 ETH then? Get us past this gap?
It's not gonna be me. I'm the least proficient of like speaking on like the NFT space. The biggest issue I have, so I'll say this, I think it's a lot like art in the real world, in the sense of like it just trades sort of like ad hoc, and like really like there's like a very small subset of it that actually matters, and it is actually a very good store of wealth, and like it's a good trade. It's just like you don't see like dedicated funds like trading it, right? And I think the reason you're not going to ever see that level of like capital move into it is because you're not like doing anything. Like if you're like a manager, you just like bought a bunch of random art and you just sit there and you like click carry, and like nobody's going to pay you to do that. So I think like that's like, it's just always going to be like a high net worth individual like trading activity. And like maybe I'll leave my words on this, and like that's just like not how it works out, but that would be how I see it evolving. And because of that, like I just think that won't like kneecap it. It's just going to move slower than I think people think. Like I think it'll always be this thing where like the high top tier ones like have value and they trade. I just don't think there's going to be like these massive like bubble like waves with them in the same way you see in the other assets. But who knows? I guess we'll see next cycle. Like NFTs, like for having value is still like a pretty small subset of time.
I think in my opinion as well is like last year it was so new, so you could actually get also like new looking NFT projects, so everything didn't look the same. Whereas like even now, every project seems to look like a Azuki or a Bored Ape, whereas you didn't have that problem before. So I'm probably in the camp of there will be like a few that come through, and I'm sure there'll be some new ones, but I can't see that we get last summer again, personally. Maybe I'm completely wrong as well. But last summer, everything just went up, didn't it? NFT wise anyway, and crypto. I doubt that happens again. But Kaleo, let me ask you about your NFT collection. How did you end up founding Wonky Stonks? Where did that idea come from?
Yeah, man. So I have a good buddy that, you know, he was in between jobs, one of the smartest guys I know. And, you know, we were just kind of BSing about everything. It was during the summer, like before the real craze actually even happened in August. Like, hey, you know, here's what's happening with the NFT side of things. Kind of, you know, interested diving into it. And he actually had the idea of, you know, the AI art side of things, like Art Blocks was doing really well. So we're looking at generative art and trying to keep it, you know, rather than some random PFP project, didn't really feel on brand with me and, you know, my background. So, you know, the charts was something that just never really, like, I hadn't seen anybody do generative charts before. And I liked the idea of it because it was something that resonated with the fact that, okay, like, you know, charts, I do see them as art. You know, I do look at price action, and it does resonate with something inside of me where it evokes some type of emotion from some type of previous, like time in my life. It's almost like when you smell something and you smell that scent and it takes you back. For me, like, as crazy as it sounds, I look at charts so much that like I can look at price action and I can think, and it'll resonate with not just a certain token or a certain stock or this or that, but like a certain time of my life as well. So I really liked the idea, and we put it together, and I wanted it to be something that was extremely accessible for everybody. So it didn't free mint type of style where, and it was like the day that Bitcoin and ETH were breaking and making a new all-time high as well after all the summer FUD. So that was really cool. The other thing with it is, like looking back on it, would it have been a better idea to, like tell people, hey, I'm doing this, and I wanted it to be really fair. So I did not tell any of my friends. I didn't tell didn't do any honoraries whatsoever. I just wanted to release something in the world and kind of let it be an experiment with no roadmap, no anything else, and just for the art, and let it go. And like it's not a multi-ETH this or that project. It sits there, I think, between like 0.05 to 0.1, but like we have a really strong community. And it's one of those things that I think that like over time, if you just stick around and you continue to, build that community and show up and, spend time there, that eventually, value will end up following. Maybe not. Like, who knows? I just enjoy doing it at the end of the day, man. So, that's kind of the background with it. So, I like, regardless of whatever the price is, I really don't care. Like, I just enjoy doing it. I'll be around sticking with it for the next, however many years. I really don't care. It's fun.
Yeah, to me, like my perception anyway, is that like the community is actually really good. I know that everyone says their project's community is amazing, but it is, because I've like people that are in the Penguins as well. They have wonky stonks as well as they join these spaces and all of this. So I guess if you look at it in terms of a community as well, it's like quite a low cost entry to a very strong community. You do these Twitter spaces, right, as well, Kaleo, for the community, so you get to talk with you.
I do. So, I've got one a little later this afternoon. Every Friday, I do one where we just hop in, talk about whatever's going on with the stonks, and really just, life, whatever else is going on in the NFT community as well. So, they're fun, good way of keeping a pulse on what's going on and just keeping up with everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
So
okay, let me go ahead, Dan.
I'm looking at Wonky Stonks right now. So this is just like all charts of like these are actual trading charts, right? Like these aren't like generated.
No, it's all generative.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it. So these don't tie back to something.
No, they don't tie back to anything directly, right? Like, but it is interesting to look through there and even see as you go through, like there are a lot of different setups where, it does mimic real price action.
Got it. This is kind of cool. All right. Sorry. I was just scrolling it while you're talking.
No, it's fine. Okay. I want to ask you both. I think I've asked Kevin about you, Dan. Like, what is your end goal? Because I'm sure that you've amassed quite a lot of money by this point, especially if you're here in 2012. What is it like your motivating factors nowadays? Is it like achieving things in terms of projects and building on things? Do you have like a end lifestyle that you're going for? Is money the motivation anymore?
I'd say like this is probably the end game. Like I don't think anything will change. I mean, like this is fun, right? Like, I mean, you go and you punch around on crypto Twitter and you like get your dopamine hit trading like coins around, and like you make some investments and like you hope they work out. Like I think this is kind of like the end game. Like I think the goal would be to like give more of the P&L away to the people on the team, and then to probably just donate more of it as time goes on. Like that, like we gave a good amount away last year, and like we'll like this year won't. But like if there's like another bull cycle, I would assume it'd be like a bigger order of that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like what else are you gonna do? Like this is a ton of fun.
Yeah, I think that's true. Did you have though, like when you were younger or whatever, do you have some grand ambition? Was it something like this, like kind of working in an exciting industry or something like this?
No, not really. I've just kind of been taking it like in stride, like as time's gone on. Like I like none of this was like preordained or thought out in any capacity. Like I never thought that this industry would get as big as it is now. Like, or that there would be like other things that matter besides Bitcoin for like years. So like as far as like I don't look, it's good to like have goals and it's like good to like be like to work towards things and like have like a plan, but like it really doesn't matter because like you're gonna end up getting taken in places that you like didn't know. I mean, ask Kevin. Like Kevin basically cold called me, and like that was like the start of this whole thing. Like I don't know where his career is gonna go like going forward, but like I would bet good money that like at no point he thought like this was gonna be the path like that it like started at.
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely
true?
did not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the call,
Yeah.
I know we had talked about it before, but pretty much planned for like 2 hours, like what to say, try to get on the good side, like how can I get it, and then talk to Dan. And the call, actually, I still have the record. It lasted like 2.5 minutes. He's like, "Oh yeah, perfect, nice." Talk to Bobby. He's like, "Thank God, let's go." But yeah, no idea. I studied physics, like I like crypto, but like had no idea that this is what we were going to be doing.
Dan, actually, quickly as well, you mentioned that you didn't really have ideas that this would become so big, or maybe not outside of Bitcoin. Was there like a time period then where you kind of missed out on altcoins and stuff like this because you didn't feel like any of this was going to matter and that Bitcoin was going to be the leader? I know that a lot of people have this viewpoint even still, like they refuse to buy other stuff. So what did you ever have that period where you were like, Bitcoin is the only thing that matters here?
Yeah, I mean, I watched ETH go from like $1 to like 20 before like I was like, maybe this is like a thing. And what's hilarious is like, so this was in 2017. So actually late 2016, right? So like we pretty much only traded Bitcoin until call it November of 2016. And then like a lot of the people that we traded a ton of Bitcoin with started asking us to like buy blocks of ETH. So like it happened enough that we were like, all right, like we got to ask like, because we'd never traded anything else with like clients or like counterparties. So we were like, can we do this? Like, do you guys care? And like they ran it up with the board, and the board was like, yeah, I guess it's fine. Like, we'll just like do it. It like makes money. So anyway, we got like the green light, and we just like people were buying it like hand over fist. Like we OTC punched multiple 100,000 lots of ETH, which like in dollar terms now is like a lot, but at the time like wasn't crazy. It was like 500,000, $1 million, kind of like ballpark like areas. And we're like, wow, like all these people are buying this. Like, this is crazy. Like, what are they doing? And like, but like not thinking in the back of my head, like, you're like an idiot. Like, obviously this is like going higher. Like, you're fucking moving the price. Like, this is like, why are you not like getting it? Like, this is like a thing. So like we were part of like the market like action that like took it higher, but we're like skeptical the whole way through. And it really snapped and changed when ICOs became like a big thing and people like started using ETH like as like an actual like asset to like hold value. Then we were like, all right, like we got to like throw in the towel here. Like this is going to be a thing. Like this. So I would say it was like to my detriment, skeptical of it throughout the beginning of like probably by February of 2017, we were like, all right, this is like got to be a thing. Like we got to like ride this. So yeah, I would say it was like a detriment in the beginning. I snapped out of it quicker than most, probably mostly because I was like at the forefront of like where it was happening. So I think that mattered a lot. But yeah, definitely that skepticism like cost me.
Yeah. Okay. Kaleo, what was my original question? What is your motivation, or what is your end goal, if you have one?
You know, it is a good question. I really don't know, because the interesting thing about this space is it's like, it's easy to have moving targets, right? You can hit one target, and then once you get there, the goalpost moves. And, like the question I guess you ask yourself is, okay, why does the goalpost move? And I think it goes back to what Dan says. It's kind of fun, right? Like I enjoy doing this. So I enjoyed what I did as an engineer before, but like this was always, it became a passion. So like, even though this is kind of work now, like I don't see it as work with what I'm doing. I enjoy making connections. I enjoy learning more because I really think, I'm crazy enough to think that this technology that we're investing in and speculating on actually is going to change the world. So it's really cool being part of a movement that I still think is early. You know, people can talk about prices being what they are and the type of bubbles that we've seen come and go. But overall, especially when you look at the infrastructure side of things, man, I still see this being the highest growth sector out of any market over the next, like, at least decade or two, right? Like, it feels inevitable to me. And the more that you understand the fundamentals of what is actually happening behind the scenes, it's not necessarily going to be something where, you know, fiat's going to go to the, you know, die and this is going to take over, right? Like, you know, there's a symbiotic nature of the relationship for what's going to happen. And so much more of what we see now is going to be integrated in what you do in your daily life later on down the road, but it's going to be in the type of manner where you don't really even know that it's working in the background, right? So I think just being part of that movement and seeing the growth and seeing the discovery, man, like, I want to be there and I want to be part of it as all of this is happening, right? So, you know, that's my goal, I guess, at the end of the day, is just to witness firsthand this movement and, you know, hopefully at the end of the day, be able to, you know, make a difference in it, right? Like, have a voice in what's happening. And yeah, overall though, man, just continue to have, you know, find a way to have fun while all of this is happening as well.
Yeah, I think it's really nice, to be honest. Like, I interview various people, and like, a lot of the people have like a lot of money or whatever, and I think the common thing is actually that they want to stick around because they feel like this is really like innovative and there is this future that we're going to end up in, and they don't want to miss out on it. And I think it's like Dan said as well, it's so fun, I guess. Like, what's the point in leaving, especially if it's going to be around for so long? There's no real like benefit of getting out of it. Let me ask you quickly, because we're going to run out of time, actually, crazily, because I'm interested, Kaleo. If you are so like do so well from crypto, or you're so successful or whatever from trading it, do you still feel like there's a need, in your opinion? I know it's a risky asset class or whatever, but is there this need to be like in stocks and in other assets? So do you mainly focus on crypto and then stocks and whatever are like a minute element, or are you like much more balanced and traditionally reasonable, I guess?
It just depends on the season, man. So, you know, like, I chase volatility and, you know, I enjoy trading stocks as well. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think crypto is more of my passion. And it, you know, I do find when I am in my binges of being more stock focused that, you know, the crypto side of it gets a little bit weaker, right? You know, because you only have so much time that you can pour into understanding, you know, anything. So, yeah, man, I enjoy the crypto side a little bit more. So, you know, I like that. Probably will continue to be the majority of my focus, and, you know, still play around with stocks a little bit on the, you know, the side, but more so crypto.
Okay, last question from me. It'll be from the CMS side. I'm interested, I think you can both answer maybe, like, in your venture investments, do you have like is there a set of things that you're looking for? So are you people that invest mainly, I know people have ideas that they invest in like the founder over the project or whatever. Do you have like set elements that you're looking for when you're investing in like companies and projects, or does it really depend on what kind of sector they're in?
I'll let Kevin take it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could do like an entire hour-long episode just diving into like important things to look at there. But yeah, I mean, all the variables are relevant, right? Like, everything matters. The team absolutely matters. Their past history, where it's being built. Like, if it's in an ecosystem that we expect in the next like 12 to 18 months to grow and like become more relevant and become more important, like, that's definitely important. If we can actually add value to it, right? Like, the DNA of CMS has been trading, like, that's what it started off as, and now like venture has definitely grown. But like, the bread and butter is in trading and DeFi. So like, if it's something in that realm that we can definitely help out on, that plays a factor. But yeah, I mean, there are a whole host of things that you kind of have to look at. But yeah, like team, product, ecosystem, are like some of the main three that we tend to look at there.
Did you like retain money knowing that there's going to be an inevitable crash in the market? Like, as of course you've been around so long, you know that there's going to be crashes along the way. So do you retain most of your funds for moments like this when everything is cheaper, everyone feels like everything's over and whatever? Or did you do a lot of your investments like last year anyway?
Yeah. So what ends up happening is like we would do like the venture book's like effectively funded from like trading activity, right? Like that's like kind of like the flow of how this stuff comes. So you end up like, it's a little bad in the sense of like you end up having the most money to do deals like when you like are making the most trading, which is like inevitably going to be like when like the big run-ups are. So I think like that like sort of cycle like plays out. I'd say the biggest thing though is like what people are probably learning hard this year is like you really gotta like have your tax situation like cleaned up by end of year in like a cash perspective, because like it's a pretty quick way to like body yourself. And like we saw this in 2018 and you just saw it again this year. Like it's wild. So like I think that's like our biggest like of like our cash positioning. It's like largely driven by like those decisions in any given year. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, yeah, it does. Yeah. To be honest, I have a lot of questions that I'd want to ask you, but I think it's late, and also I don't want to take up all of your time. Well, it's late for me anyway. I'll probably maybe get you back on or something. I want to do some Christmas special, maybe get various people on. But yeah, I have a lot of questions that I'm going to have to miss out on. But thank you so much for joining. Thank you everyone for listening as well. Hopefully it was a good episode. Kaleo answering some stuff in the chat. I know a lot of people wanted us to shield Doge. Go ahead, Dan.
I couldn't even figure out how to get the chat to work. I think I have to log in.
It's the top right. It says comments.
Yeah, but then there's nowhere to like make the comment. Like if I go private chat, it doesn't matter now because we're ending. But I couldn't figure out how to comment.
I did it directly from YouTube.
Yeah, you might have to.
I have the app open. So. Maybe you just can't. I think you have to be logged in to YouTube.
Yeah, it might be that.
Right. Not a big deal.
But yeah. Anyway, yeah, thank you so much. And that is about it from us. Yeah, make sure you subscribe. I think whoever got next week, Franklin is bored, the Bored Ape holder. So yeah, going to be talking about all of his whatever loans come up. And I know he made like a fat finger sale the other day. So we can ask about that. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. And bye-bye.
Anytime.
Enjoyed it. Appreciate you having